We all know that in St. Louis you can take a brewery tour. Take a short trip and you can visit any number of wineries. But a distillery, well, that's been a hard thing to find around here, until recently.
As one of the latest additions to St. Louis's restaurant scene, the Stable in Benton Park will soon revive a practice that dates back centuries. The Stable's owners have licenses pending for both a microbrewery, something quite familiar to local beer lovers, and something not as familiar, a microdistillery. If all goes as planned, handcrafted liquors like whiskey and vodka will be made and served on site.
Beer lovers are normally food lovers too, willing to try new things, and so craft distilling just makes sense. So many industries that, in the beginning were craft, got away from being craft and became, mass marketed or mass produced, and essentially some of the quality kind of got watered down. And now through craft distilling or craft brewing, you're sort of, everything seems to be coming back into the fold, whether it be craft cheese making or craft bread making. Everybody's making something, small batch.
In April of 2008, a few months before the Stable's grand opening, distillation manager and chemist Mike Stapleton showed me how various plant carbohydrates, after fermenting, steaming, and condensing, become spirits.
This is what we have on this is called an airlock. So the CO2, which is produced along with the alcohol, escapes through here and it's released here. This keeps oxygen away from the fermentation, which will cause the alcohol to turn into vinegar, acetic acid. This is probably 5-6 weeks this has been here. And it's started out very sweet, and at this point it's mostly alcohol and just a tin of sugar left in it.
Stapleton dispensed with the traditional copper pot still in favor of a smaller bottle still, because legally he can only make sample batches for testing purposes right now.
We heat the liquid to reflux or boil, and it vaporizes the little tube, which has the vapors inside it, and the big tube, which has cold water circulating between the two tubes. So the vapors here, that's very hot. That's 200 degrees. Hit this and all turns back to liquid, and what you get at the end after it condenses is rum in this case, we hope.
Missouri has a long history of distilling. In fact, the nation's oldest continuously operating distillery is in Weston, near Kansas City. And one of Missouri's earliest governors turned peaches into brandy on his plantation, located on the grounds of what is now known as Faust Park in Chesterfield. Frederick Bates, Missouri's second governor, arrived in the St. Louis area in 1807. Over the next 3 years, he purchased 1,000 acres of land, which became known as Thornhill Farm. It included a peach orchard and a distillery. The process, it looks like, has not changed much.
No, it hasn't changed. You have your mash, your boiler, your condensing coils.
Food historian Suzanne Corbett explained the process of creating the brandy from fermented peach mash.
Whenever you're smelling the original mash, it almost smells like you're making beer or wine, and then it's evaporated out.
I went into Prohibition work about 6 months after I got out of the Army. And by the end of the first year, I would say there was as many people making whiskey in St. Louis as there was drinking it.
But Prohibition laws included a loophole that allowed Weston, Missouri's McCormick Distilling to keep operating. McCormick was allowed to legally sell whiskey for medicinal purposes as long as consumers had prescriptions from their doctors. Whatever the reasons for imbibing these days, the process of spirit making is coming full circle in Missouri.
I'd like to say that everything is not old is new again, but everything which is vintage is appreciated once again.